Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody. I didn't think I was going to be streaming today, but I guess I probably won't. Well, tomorrow's Saturday, so yeah, I won't be streaming Saturday, but Tuesday we will return to our normal gaming schedule. I just wanted to give one final update here. Just kind of about the aftermath of this storm. I was up most of the night last night just watching and looking and reading the reports and seeing the live feed. um Helene was just destructive, and the crazy thing was, it was not, they did not think it was going to reach category 4. They truthfully thought it was going to be category 3 and just kind of dissipate once it moved more on inland. No, what ended up happening is, just before landfall, she got so intense and gained enough strength that she became classified as category 4. So, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about what we can expect over the next few days, weather-wise. And again, I will reiterate this over and over. I am not a professional meteorologist. I do this as a hobby, and I do this as something that I enjoy. Um, but additionally, I have done a lot of research and a lot of studying on my own time. So, again, if I'm not sure about something, you will hear me say that, but I am not a professional, so do not look to me as a like a actual meteorologist. I am not a complete certified source of weather, but I do know what I'm talking about, and I will say I was correct yesterday. We saw I watched live as we had seen not just the amount of floodwater and destruction, but before this hurricane even made landfall, I have seen so many tornadoes touch down, tornado warnings, tornado watches. I have seen how high that water got. It didn't quite hit where I expected it to, but it got really, really close. Um I've seen the flooding, the just, oh my goodness, this was a destructive hurricane, and my thoughts and prayers go out to the people in Florida right now. Not just it goes out to everybody, the linemen that are working on getting that power back up for people who need it, first responders, search and rescue. They're risking their lives going through power lines, downed power lines, live power lines, getting people out of situations, uh, and especially to everybody who lost their homes as well. That is extremely devastating, and my heart goes out to those people. Now, I did not see this yesterday, because when I looked at radar yesterday, or on the National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center, I noticed that Helene was here, and Isaac over here. That's a whole hurricane. Wait a minute. Where is that going? Where's it moving? East northeast, so it's heading away. How are you still here? Actually, that's not even a question. It's just the water. Um, I don't think I noticed Joycey yesterday. Um, the thing that kind of worries me is this is moving northwest. Um, so I guess we'll keep an eye out on that and see if we need to expect anything. I expect this to die out, to be honest. Um, sustained winds, 40 miles per hour. I don't expect this to really do too much. I mean, it's all the way out in the ocean, so I mean, I don't think it'll do anything, but I guess we'll find out. Um, but I just wanted to look at this here. It's a tropical depression. In like smack dab between Tennessee and Kentucky. I just want to see what has changed here. I can't look at either of those. Okay. We haven't anything new about it though. Tropical storm, tropical depression. Here we go. I mean, everything's basically died out with Helene on this end. I really just wanted to see what was going on here. I mean, not much. It's basically turned into a bunch of like scattered thunderstorms. I want to hop on a radar here. Let's see. See if I can spot it. I use KCCI's radar for all that because it's basically one of the best ones I know. It's Des Moines. It's Iowa's like radar thing for Iowa, but I can just do this. Haha. All right. So Tallahassee, Tampa, they got the worst of it, and I truthfully mean that. Like, they got hit pretty bad. But as you can see, it's basically died out. Jeez, excuse me. It's basically died itself out since it moved inland. But you can see we're going to get a lot of rain in the Ohio area. We're going to get North Carolina's going to have this move through. But you can see where it once was like a big spinning thing of clouds. It's just dissipated out to a lot of scattered stuff. I just want to see what its movement is going to be. So you can see still it has some of that momentum from spinning. But you can also kind of see like the clouds are going to die out, or at least the rain and precipitation might die out. So it's going to dissipate. It's going to go away. Now over here, I noticed it kind of reflared itself again. I don't know if that's just like the ocean being so warm as it is. That's the other thing that made this hurricane very, very like catastrophic is the waters in the ocean right now are just super warm still. We had a really, really, really warm summer. And that's kind of continuing into fall in certain areas. Now, especially in like Florida and southern areas, it's still really warm. It's still really warm in the Midwest too. I took a look yesterday. Over here on the West Coast, it's really, really cold. We had like a cold snap from the north, I think, from like Canada. It's just kind of weird, but oh well. But the Midwest and the waters of the Atlantic and especially in the Gulf, it seems that they are still really fired up, still really heated up. So that's one of the biggest factors as to why this was just so devastating and just absolutely insane of a hurricane that Florida just got hit with. Now, I know in Georgia and in South Carolina and in North Carolina, they have had just record-breaking rainfall. I don't think we will see anything top these record rain numbers that we have just gotten yesterday ever again in our lifetimes. This was a big hurricane. This was a category 4. Even the Waffle House is shut down. That's how you know, is the Waffle House index. It will tell you. Now, I've also noticed a lot online, because I like to keep up with things. People apparently. Now, I'm going to say a couple of things. First, I want to preface, I am not shaming anybody. I am not mad at anybody. But I'm a little annoyed. I have seen people with pets and with children and just in general ignore the emergency, like mandatory evacuations. There are people in Tallahassee and in Tampa and in the Big Bend of Florida that ignored the mandatory evacuation protocols, and they are now stuck. And that means first responders. That means rescue operations. They now have to stretch themselves even more thin to save the people who decided to ignore the first responders in the first place. Now, I also want to preface, I understand that packing up and leaving is expensive. And especially right now, money is just stretched beyond thin. However, if you can, if you have neighbors, if you have friends, if you have family, pack up what you're gonna need and your pets and just go. I mean, you have neighbors, there's other people, I'm sure, that were evacuating that could have very much so helped you. But I've also seen a lot online that there are ignorant people who willfully ignored all of these warnings and decided, day off, I'm gonna party my heart out, and then got, for some reason, surprised when the surge water broke into their home and then they got stuck. I understand because here's the thing. I'm from the Midwest. And as the Midwesterns know, we will stand outside and watch a tornado form right in front of us. That's one thing. But the other thing is, we know when to get inside and to take shelter. Now, I can't speak for all of us. Some of us are still really stupid and decide, it's not going to happen, and then it does. But most of the time, us Midwesterns know, like, there is a limit. And when you know what that limit is, when we're hearing, like, the actual reports of even the reporters saying, like, oh yeah, this is bad, like, you guys need to get into your safe spaces. As soon as they say that, we know it's time to go. We know. We do not sit there and have a freaking house party. It doesn't make sense. Okay? So, I don't know what it's gonna take for people to actually listen to their weather personnel and their weather people and actively heed the warnings that they're being given, because you need to heed the warnings that you are being given. If you don't, I'm sad to say, but that is a very dumb decision and naive decision on your part. I do not mean to lecture you, but for some reason I have to, because apparently Not a lot of people decide to take these warnings seriously, and they end up in these situations. And I need you to hear me when I say, do not put yourself in that situation. It frustrates me. I've seen people online saying that they had no warning. That is a big lie. How do I know? Because I sat there and I watched the reports. 3-4 days before this storm even made landfall, was even close to making landfall. And I watched as really smart people prepped, packed up, and left. And I watched as certain people were very unsure and they didn't know how to make that big decision. And I understand that. But at a point, they knew a couple days before, they're like, okay, yeah, we got to get out of here. We have to evacuate. We're being forced to evacuate. I'm deep breath. I just need you guys to understand, when we say it's time to go, it's time to go, especially your first responders. They do not get paid. Well, I mean, they do get paid, but they are not paid to listen to you ignore their warnings. They are, but they aren't. That's not what they like to see. They do not like to see people blissfully ignoring their mandatory evacuation protocols. I literally tuned in as the sheriff's county or the sheriff's department of Tallahassee and even Tampa in some areas basically state that if you ignored mandatory evacuation protocols, you need to write down a social security number, your social security number, your name, anything they can use to identify you and report you as your body has been found. Because they knew from the weather reports, from everything, because National Hurricane Center and National Weather Service communicate with these people. They knew with these reports. Not a lot of people were going to live if they decided to ignore these warnings, and people still decided to. I'm done lecturing you. I feel like I'm lecturing you and I've been going on about this, but seriously, I need this to drive home for you guys. You cannot ignore the warnings. You cannot ignore the emergency mandatory evacuations. And I feel like this is going to be a wake-up call for a lot of people. You cannot ignore it. Do not ignore it. Please and thank you. All right. So, back on to the weather portion of this. I'm done giving you guys a lecture. It went on for a little bit longer than I would have liked, but I needed you to hear me on that. Now, I also wanted to know, so this, or is it this? I think this is what's being watched, but there's also this too. I just want to see what it's going to do. See, that's kind of starting to like grow and rotate a little bit. I don't like that. Yeah, I do believe we're going to be keeping an eye on this and kind of a little bit of this too. I think is what I noticed on the National Hurricane Center. And then there's also this. This is moving away. It's going to head for Ponta Delgada. Or Ponta Delgada. Jesus. Can I English? It's going to be headed for Portugal. It's going to be headed for Spain. They're probably going to get like a windstorm. I don't think it's going to grow into too much. But I mean, it has the chance to. The thing that kind of, I think I've also heard that we're watching this spot kind of right here towards like tail of Mexico into Central America. They're seeing some activity here in the Caribbean and they're just not sure about it yet. They don't know what's going to happen with it. They don't know if it could grow. It has the potential. It has the ingredients. So that's kind of what they're really watching for, because that's where Helene came in too. You got to realize she was like right here within Cuba and Central America and tail end of Mexico is, I believe, where they said she kind of floated herself in here. So and especially with these Gulf waters, I mean, the temperatures that I've been seeing on the ocean side of this has been very concerning, because it's just a breeding ground. It is like the perfect way for storms and hurricanes to form right now. We have just had a really, really hot summer. We had, big heat waves coming through. We've had just the warmest summer. And believe me, I've been through a lot of warm summers. Do not get me wrong. Growing up in the Midwest, we get heat index all the time. But this summer was definitely really warm. As a matter of fact, the one thing that tipped me off to that... Excuse me, I had to sip my coffee there. The biggest thing that gave me a big little tidbit off is, I want to say like a couple months ago, we went to... I personally went with some family to a, basically like this, I guess I would say like where you can rent out like little private villas and it's like a whole private beach. It was really, really pretty. It was like a little mini resort down here in the Baja Peninsula in Mexico. And I got in the water and it was warm. Like, it was actually warm. And I was like, oh, like last summer, 2023, we did not get nearly that warm of waters, in my opinion. I did not, and I went to the beach a lot in 2023. We did not get that warm of water. I stepped in that water, it was warm, and I was shocked. Now that just gives me like the biggest like confirmation. We've had a really, really warm summer, and that makes the waters extremely warm, and especially in the Gulf, that is going to be the perfect ingredient that these storms need. The other biggest thing too I've noticed yesterday, that I also called out on yesterday's stream, and that I know the YouTuber's name, Ryan. He's a meteorologist. He had a team of meteorologists. We were watching them yesterday. Even he stated there was no wind shear to tear this thing apart. Wind shear will typically tear a storm apart. It'll do that to tornadoes as well. But there was not, either there was none or there was very little wind shear that was able to take this hurricane down any notches. In fact, with basically no wind shear to tear it apart, it grew. It intensified. To the point where more inland, I think between Georgia and Tennessee, is when they said that it could still be classified as a level 2 hurricane, more inland. And that's crazy. Like, that is literally crazy. So yeah, this just gives us, like, I'm very interested. It's going to take quite a few weeks before we get all of the data on this. And everybody goes over the numbers and verifies all of the number portions, which I'm really excited to look at. And see what exactly went on with this. When my freaking thing does that. Nobody's in my YouTube. I always double check with my people on YouTube. But yeah, I noticed that just the water levels, the water temperature, the no wind shear, just every single ingredient was just perfect to feed this storm, and it did. And it did right up until, and even after, it made landfall. Once it was out of the water, that was our biggest... That's what we wanted. We wanted this thing out of the water as fast as possible before it had the chance and the potential to intensify even more. Literally right up until it hit landfall. Like, that's when National Hurricane Center literally classified this as a level 4 hurricane. And that's crazy. I mean, that is legitimately crazy. Even Waffle House is like, we're not having any part of this. Waffle House Index was like, nope, red, we're leaving. We are leaving. And if Waffle House Index doesn't scare you, I'm scared of you. Like, if Waffle House closing down does not concern you, I am scared of you. What do you mean Waffle House Index doesn't scare you? Now I'm scared of you. But I also wanted to see what was going on live with people. I really, really want to see what the aftermath of all of this is. So I really want to know what's been going on. I want to see what people are saying. So let's take a listen here. Is this going to do what I want it to or no?
And get storms of this magnitude. In the upstate, our customers there do not typically face this kind of damage, so it will take several days.
And obviously, I would reiterate the same thing. We're a little bit different in that the damage to our system was mostly on our transmission system, and so we are working collaboratively with Rob Hostetler and the co-ops in the state.
This is in South Carolina, everybody.
As we restore those transmission lines, we need to do it in a thoughtful way and a safe way so that we know that the cooperatives are ready for that energy at that point in time. So we're going to work very closely with them. It's a very meticulous process, and so we too expect it's going to be a multi-day event.
Yes, sir. I would just add one thing. That's an exceptional question, hard to answer until you've done your assessment. And so we're all in the assessment phase right now. And with the amount of trees that are down, it's hard to get the assessment done. But know that that's what we're working on as we're trying to restore power, is get an assessment and probably a better question for a later time.
Next question.
On the power front, is there any concern? I know you've got crews coming in from out of state, different areas, but is there any concern on supplies as far as replacement components, transmission line, anything like that? Is that something you folks stockpile for a situation like this, or do you have to bring those in?
We do. We have what we call our storm kits. And so we go ahead and they're palletized. They're in our storeroom. They're set off to the side. We plan for this 365 days out of the year. And so they are quickly put on.
Is that National Guard helicopter up there?
Wire,
It looked like it.
Repair fittings, the whole 9 yards. They're already palletized, put on the 18-wheelers, head out of Columbia from our main storeroom and go to all of the crew quarters that we have throughout South Carolina. That's just experience that we've gained, and that really helps us from that standpoint. So not concerned about material at this point.
And I would say the same for Duke Energy. You know, when we come into hurricane season, we know it's likely we're going to get hit somewhere, and so we make sure that we have the materials and supplies that we need to respond to that. And at this point, not aware of any issues, but we'll continue to keep people posted.
Same story. We have the material, all the material that we need. We've been doing a lot
that's the thing.
Consistent work on our
I'm going to pause this real quick. That is one of the biggest things. Especially close to the southern regions where the Gulf is. I'm really, really happy that all of the linemen and all of the energy management places, they are prepped and ready for this. However, the biggest issue that, like he said, has definitely got to be assessing through the damage, getting all of the debris out of the way so that way all the line crews can get deployed and ready to go. And I know some people bought generators, some people have. Thank you so much. You're super sweet. Thank you. We're just sitting here watching the live aftermath. I did a stream yesterday, making my predictions. This is just me going through. And I'll double down on what I said too yesterday is I had a feeling like before this made landfall and even during the landfall, this thing produced a lot of different tornadoes. I mean, we had tornado warnings like every couple of minutes. We would catch a break for like a handful of minutes, at the most, I think 30 minutes. And then this thing would just produce another one and another one and another one. And I watched last night on Ryan's page, a YouTuber who does weather. He's a meteorologist. He caught on one of the traffic cameras a tornado at nighttime. That is dangerous. I will say that with the heaviest tone. Night tornadoes are one of the most dangerous tornadoes if you are not weather aware about them. They're hard to spot. They're hard to find. South Carolina got hit pretty hard with the flooding. South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, and Florida have basically their rain levels, all their rain records were broken by a lot. Their rain records, we're not going to see this record broken in our lifetimes, basically. This was a huge storm. It was a Category 4 at landfall. And as I stated, the reason of that was because there was no wind shear to break this thing apart. Wind shear will shred a storm apart if possible, but there was little to no wind shear whatsoever. So this thing caused, extensive rain, and in some places it's still raining. So yeah, a lot of record-breaking rain levels happened last night. But this is just, I guess, South Carolina giving their updates on their power outages and just all of their flooding situation as well.
Transmission lines. And so we have a lot of that material available. Like these guys, we plan for storms. And so we will not have a material issue.
Any more? Yeah, super quick. Co-ops, same way. The one thing the co-ops have done, though, co-ops cooperate, and that's how they gain scope and scale. And they own a supply company that's located right here in Columbia. So the supply company has plenty of supply.
Did he just say cops in a funny way? I'm sorry. I know this is super serious, but co-ops. Co-ops.
Next question.
Governor, do you have on you mentioned the 4 deaths, but exactly the situation surrounding those deaths?
You can see National Guard and other first responders and helicopters coming through.
Of course, there's still investigations that are ongoing with regard to those, but we're confident in saying they were traffic related.
Oh yeah, did y'all know that even Reed Timmer, bro, is a storm chaser. Bro typically chases tornadoes. Bro was inside the eye of the Category 4 hurricane. Reed Timmer's been on some side quests recently for some reason. I'm gonna see.
Well, good news, the house that the cats go on is still there.
Crank that down just a bit.
Somebody got stuck in a ditch over here. They're trying to
You can see, look at this damage. Oh.
Yeah, there's a lot of houses missing now. Where was the guy stuck?
This is just insane. I believe this is in Florida. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on it. Yeah, Perry, Florida. This is in Perry, Florida.
We're gonna go think our Airbnb is gone.
Yeah. This was just a lot. Look at the debris is everywhere. Bro uses Streamlabs like I do. Oh my god. You can see.
Airbnb to the left or the right, Corey? Left is gone. Okay, I never figured out which one it was.
Look at the down power lines, the debris. They're trying to clear a lot of these roadways, and a lot of these roadways are still covered in debris and live power lines.
The kitchenware's gone. Well, all of these ones that are built on a slab are, I just don't know why they do that down here.
Look at that. That is downed and out. That is dangerous, by the way. Oh my goodness, this is just a lot. Yeah. want to pop in here. This is live. This is ground zero. Look at the water level. I mean, and it's gonna take a long, long time before this recedes back out. Let me see. This is in Cedar Key. Cedar Key, Florida. This is the damage by drone here. I mean, look at how high that water got. I mean, I'm surprised. Yeah. This is like beachfront. I'm surprised half of this house isn't even underwater. Or restaurant. Jeez Louise. Yeah, that storm surge was no joke. I mean, look at the debris and the extensive damage. And this is why we warn you days ahead of time. This is what the water took. This is what the wind and, you know, this is just disastrous. This makes my heart so sick. Like, people, you could see, hang on, back up there for a second. Look at the cinder blocks. Look at that. These big bricked cinder blocks, they're heavy. That was a wall of one of these houses gone. That should tell you how dangerous the storm was. And I mean, as in we, I mean all of the certified meteorologists warned and warned and warned and warned people. This is what you're going to expect. I'm pretty sure most of this was even caused by wave damage. People think, oh, waves are so cute. No. Waves will screw you up if you are not paying attention. The water's going to creep up and you're not even going to notice. And it will take houses. It will take anything in its path that it can, because those waves are slamming at such a high speed and at such a big force. It will crumble anything in its path. Pair that with how the wind was blowing, and you've got yourself a disaster, basically. This is why we warn people so much ahead of time. This is why we warn people days in advance. Because this is what could happen. A roof could collapse on your head. I heard a report yesterday that I think a mom and her child, which is really, really breaks my heart because this is not something I ever like to say, but a mom and her child, I guess, were out in the middle of the storm. As to why, I'm not sure. Maybe they were trying to escape. Who knows? And all of a sudden, the force of a wind knocked down a huge road sign, and they did not make it. That breaks my heart, but this is why we warn people in advance. This is why we have these systems set in place to warn people days in advance for these big events. And actually, I found this out yesterday too. About approximately 66 years ago, on the same date of the month, we had another Hurricane Helene. 66 years ago on the same day of the same month. Let that sink in for a minute. Pretty crazy, huh? And this one caused record-breaking things. Just damage, rain numbers. It's a lot.
All right, moving on, bringing up our Tennessee map now. Helene is now a tropical storm making its way through the area. So this is what it looks like in eastern parts of the state. You can see right there, Helene was a Category 4 hurricane when it made landfall over Florida's Big Bend last night. So it caused a lot of damages in places like Perry, which you can see here. And so far, at least 22 people have been killed as a result of the storm across several states. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis spoke earlier this morning and says first responders from all over are helping on the ground.
Search and rescue operations were conducted to help people that were in distress and transport them to safety. These missions continue, but we've had thousands of missions successfully completed in the overnight hours throughout the state. This is our local first responders. This is local in conjunction with state assets and state assets direct.
Bro has the Florida boat. Dude has the Florida boat. I'm sorry, I had to point that out. Yeah. They have had, first responders have been working around the clock to get people out of these dangerous situations into the arms of the medical field and professionals to then make sure they're okay, save them from, high floodwaters, all that kinds of jazz.
Directly going in and effectuating rescues, and that's the National Guard, that's Florida Fish and Wildlife, that's all the assets we had available to help support these rescue efforts, and all the calls that any state officials responded to last night. We were able to find the person or people and pets and bring them to safety. And so that's a contrast from some of the things that we saw, for example, at Hurricane Helene. And now it's still early. They're going to have those folks who were responding to those calls. They're going to be doing broader search and rescue in those areas that did get hit with significant storm surge and see if there's any other problems or if there's any folks that are still left behind.
Our video feeds take you to some of those areas. You can see here what the governor was talking about. This is a water rescue in Citrus County, Florida. You can see the rescuers there just carrying one of the residents to safety out of all of the floodwaters there. Certainly a lot going on in this effort to help the people in the area there. Meteorologist Jessica Birch has been covering this. Jess, what do you know so far?
Millions of people right now in the south are without power. The death toll is now over 20, and we continue to keep a close eye all throughout Florida and throughout the south as the storm is still wreaking havoc over areas from Kentucky all the way over into...
I'm sorry, but that is cool. I want a map on my floor, and I wanted to do that. That looks sick. I know it's a green screen effect, but dude, that's crazy cool. Not to take away from what she's saying, but that is cool.
Tennessee. Here's what's happening. This storm went under rapid intensification as it moved its way
throughout the Gulf.
It brought heavy rain and wind all throughout Florida, and here's where it's currently at as we head right now into the next 24 hours. Rapid intensification means that system hit some of the most warm sea surface temperatures on record down in the south, and that's what caused the storm to gain strength up to a Category 4 by the time it made landfall last night, devastating communities widespread throughout the south. Taking a look behind me, I want to dive into where it's at. It's now started to decay. Inevitably, that's going to happen as it moves its way over land, starting to weaken right now, but max sustained winds are still around 45 miles per hour as it continues to push north, now into communities anywhere from Tennessee all the way over into the Carolinas. As we head into the coming days, we're going to continue to monitor this, but as we head into the next couple of days, the big concern has to do now with freshwater flooding all throughout those regions where heavy rainfall is still expected, and we continue to keep a close eye on what that's going to do for those regions as well.
Yeah, Jess, it's the days after especially that is hard, especially with the rescues as well. So we do have Ken Graham joining us now for more information on Helene, and he is the director of NOAA's National Weather Service. Ken, thanks for joining us. You have Jessica Birch and myself, Juliette Goodrich, here asking you some questions. First and foremost, this largest hurricane to hit the Big Bend region. Any indication of what to expect to come now?
It's interesting. We're not done with this event yet. I mean, if you think about some of the storm surge areas that we had around Tampa up towards the Big Bend in Florida, it's an ongoing event. I mean, we're seeing all the hazards associated with these.
I mean, look at that. It's just flooded. So yeah, this thing moved And it kind of strayed from where their cone of prediction was, which, I mean, makes sense. Storms are unpredictable. Nobody can truthfully know for 100% of fact where it's going to move. But it did move a little bit eastwards out of their cone of prediction, which I had a feeling it kind of would. Something just in the way that I was watching the eye move and just watching these clouds kind of congregate, I had a feeling it was definitely going to move a little bit more eastward. So it moved through Florida into Georgia, maybe a tinge bit into Alabama, up towards Carolinas and Tennessee, and now we're dealing with a lot of that just heavy rainfall, a lot of the freshwater flooding, like they said, of rivers, creeks, basically just any body of water. It's all of these places are going to swell, they're going to flood, flash flooding. It's, I believe, one of the biggest things that people are very concerned about right now. It's devastating. It's just devastating. And this storm moved quickly too. I'm not even gonna lie. It moved quick. It intensified quick. And it intensified until it made landfall. I mean, they weren't sure. It was first categorized as a high level 3, and just right about a couple, I want to say, maybe like 30 minutes to an hour before it made landfall, or pretty much up and like about until it made landfall, they then classified it as a category 4. And that is big. That is dangerous. That is large. And the South is definitely going to be dealing with this for a long while. And dependent on how this rain moves now, how a lot of the wind and the force is gonna happen, we might see some supercells, we might see some tornado watches still up to this point. It's very possible. But it also very much so, like I said, depends on how much energy a lot of these storms have. I mean, it takes a lot of energy to have a hurricane like that. But I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot of rain, maybe even some severe thunderstorm warnings by chance today. It just depends on, like I said, how much energy these storms still have, how they're going to congregate, how they're going to, if they're going to disperse, if they're going to dissipate. It very much so just depends on all the little factors. But it wouldn't surprise me if we managed to get, severe thunderstorm warnings going out to some of the states. Like I said, especially with these flash floods and the rain still being a big factor in a lot of these places. So definitely still be prepared. It is day 2 and everybody still needs to be prepared for anything. I want people to understand you still need to be prepared for the thunderstorms, the flooding, the raining. Just definitely keep an eye out. Give me 1 second. I will be right back, everybody. I gotta go grab something really quickly. Let me just here I am. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. All right. Back to
these hurricanes take place. We had the storm surge, large storm. I mean, if you think about the size of the storm, we had tropical storm force winds out 350 miles. So there's places, Tampa Bay, think about more than 6 foot of storm surge 100 miles away from the center.
Look at how that car is. Look at that. Cars get picked up by this stuff. Now, this was just 6 feet of storm surge, apparently. I have seen places, and especially in Tallahassee and around the Big Bend, on that coastal line. I watched yesterday night as Ryan, like I said, he owns a YouTube channel. I watched his thing all of last night, so I'm going to be referencing him quite a lot. He had a couple people, had a bunch of live feed cameras, and I think somebody even mounted a live feed camera 10 feet up in the air on a, it was either it wasn't a telephone pole, it was a lamp post. 10 feet in the air on a lamp post. And I watched as the water overtook that. So it very well could have gotten to 15, 16, 17 feet even worth of storm surge. The flooding and the storm surge of this hurricane was insane. It was so quick. It did not take very long for the storm surge to get as high as it did. And I literally watched as the water overtook that camera and they lost that camera's feed. So, you see these places where it's like, 6 feet of storm surge, and you're like, 6 feet of storm surge, that doesn't sound like much. Look at this. I need you to look at this. And in some places, they had it worse. They had it to, 10 feet, 15, 15 feet, 16 feet even. A person could drown very easily. Not only that, but there was also live wires, live telephone, cable, power line wires dropping into the water, electrifying the water. And I don't know. I don't know if there were people who were dumb enough to step in that water or not, but I hope nobody was, because that is just terrifying to think about. I mean, that's like throwing a toaster in a freaking bathtub, dude. Like, this is literally... It electrified the hell out of that water. And, that just makes it so much harder for search and rescue to save people who willfully ignored the evacuation protocols. It makes it so much harder for people who... I've never left Florida. I've never left Florida for a hurricane, not a day in my life. Does not matter. Does not matter if you have or hadn't before. You need to now. Because when you ignore stuff like this, that makes it so much harder, and it drags out search and rescue, and it even risks their lives. Lives that they also have a family. They also have friends, And I don't think a lot of people think about what they do before they do it, and they need to. They really need to. Because it's not only their lives on the line. It is search and rescue, first responders, National Guard. They are all doing what they can to save who needs to be saved. And if you ignorantly ignore the warnings, you are not only putting your life at risk, but theirs as well. And I want to say a huge, huge, huge shout out to Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, any place that got affect, Georgia. All of their first responders have been working around the clock. And especially Florida. They've been working around the clock to get people to safety, to not just people, pets. They've been doing what they can, where they can, and they have been working extremely hard. And another shout out to, all of the linemen and women who are going to be going into these places, trying to restore power, trying to get power back on the grid, risking their lives to ensure that we can once again have power and be comfortable in our homes again. Huge shout out to everybody who is, doing what they can where they can. And I know a lot of people in Florida and, any place that got affected who aren't first responders, who are looking for survivors, community coming together to save their own people in their own community. And it is heartwarming to see that. And I just hope everyone makes it out okay, because this was devastating. I mean, absolutely devastating of flooding, devastating of a storm.
So that's one of the hazards. Of course, we had the wind, especially around that eye wall, so incredible amount of damage and power outages, but ongoing flash flooding. Historically, these systems cause so much inland damage, and that threat continues for portions of western North Carolina and upstate South Carolina up into Tennessee. Just a dangerous situation when it comes to the water.
And the storm became a massive system in such a short amount of time. So how can people prepare for storms like this in the future?
It's interesting with the big storms. Most people think of these hurricanes, crossing the Atlantic and lots of notice. Every single storm, I look at the Cat 5, for example, the most powerful storms. Every one of those Cat 5s that have hit this country was a tropical storm or less 3 days out. So this one being a Cat 4 at landfall, 140 miles per hour, another one of those that don't give a lot of time. But I tell you, it was right on our forecast on Monday. Our very first forecast was only about 40 miles off from where it hit. That's staggering how far the science has come. The better the forecast, the more time we have to prepare for the hazards.
Yeah, thanks to all of our meteorologists. All right, Ken Graham, thank you so much for that information. So let's take you all there. CBS News national correspondent Dave Malkoff has been standing in water all day from Atlanta. And Dave, at one point, we saw that you were waist deep in water. Conditions changing now, but what's heading now as Helene is now moving north?
It is, Juliet, and the water has receded quite a bit here, but we're still in an ongoing situation that's happening right here as, we've got a sad update for you that Governor Brian Kemp just said that 11 people have been killed in this storm just here in Georgia. That puts it over 20 people throughout Georgia and Florida. So most of those deaths were south of us, but there's still a big problem here in the Atlanta area. Juliet, last time we talked like this, we were in Francine, and we had a wind event. Remember that that whole store was ripped apart, and this is now a flooding event from all the water that dumped on top of us here in Atlanta.
The other thing, too, I wanted to quickly touch on. There were gusts and vortices that came from this storm that ripped roofs off of people's houses that have, played with cars like toys, dude. Like the vortices that came from this, from both the inner cloud sections a little bit closer to the eye just were tearing things apart. Uprooting trees, knocking over telephone poles, and literally tossing cars around. And that is very scary to think about. I mean, almost in the sense like a tornado would, but a tornado would literally pick up a car. But those vortexes and, those types of winds will absolutely toss you around. I mean, I've seen people, a couple of different storm chasers who were standing out in the wind just getting blown around like a paper bag. Like literally. These winds were very, very strong, and the gusts were really, really hard hitting. They were fast. And it's just, there's so many factors to this. It's not just the flooding, and it's not just the wind. It's all of these little conditions combined that make these situations very, very scary, very dangerous. And you just have to be in the know, and you have to be sure that you are listening and understanding to what these people are trying to warn you and tell you about. It's dangerous, dangerous situations.
This is the first time in a very, very long time that we had tropical.
I'm going to let this play a little bit more for you guys. I'm going to quickly swap over laundry really quick because I have laundry in the washing machine. So,
storm force winds and a tropical storm itself coming on top of us in Atlanta, dumping all this water here. I just talked to a woman who lives over here, and her name is Selena. And she was, Julia, get this, she was sleeping in her bed, and she woke up and her mattress was floating in the bedroom. Naturally, what everyone would think is this is kind of a weird dream that I'm having right now, some kind of a nightmare. But then she came to and realized that this is real life, and she got out of her house, walked over there, and she's been out of the house until right now. Now she walks in and she's kind of mucking out everything inside of her house, trying to get all the water out of there, but it is still underwater here in Atlanta.
Yeah, Dave, that is the big concern now, cleaning all of that up, and you explained just what she woke up to. I'm curious, in that particular area, were people told or warned to clear out?
They didn't know that it was going to be this bad. They knew that there could be possibly some flooding happening here. We do have a creek, there's the Peachtree Creek that goes right through here. But they didn't know that not only was the Peachtree Creek going to swell, but then we'd have this huge fire hose of rain come on top of us. And at one point, this car was covered in water, Julia, to up to here, so you can see exactly how high the water got. Some of those, all those cars were underwater. There is, and you can't see it because of this black car right here, but there's a motor scooter that's back there that I didn't see until right now. There are people who have pulled their neighbors out of the apartments here. There's an 83-year-old man who lives right in this apartment right here, and his neighbor who lives above in the area that didn't get flooded, she pulled him up there, and he slept the night at his neighbor's house. We've talked to at least 2 people who have done just that, and so it's neighbors helping neighbors. There have been ongoing rescues, not only from the Urban Search and Rescue Team, but from just people who have boats, Julia, people in the neighborhood who have canoes and little boats, and they've been going back and forth shepherding pets and people and belongings back and forth. But now, as the water is receding a little bit, people can kind of walk through this. But this is a very serious situation here in Atlanta and in Georgia, where we have 11 people who are dead. We've got down power lines, down trees, roads that are blocked, and entire neighborhoods that are underwater.
And that is the power of community right there. That is what we like to see. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's devastating, but in times of devastation, you get to truly see people come together and, you know, put aside any differences that anybody has for anybody else. You know, it's like good people doing good work, and shout out to those people. Like I said, like, not just our first responders, don't get me wrong, they have a huge shout out for me, but you know, to anybody who is willing and able to help, they are doing so. They are helping. They are that is just the power of community, and it is truthfully what we love to see. And I don't even know. This is I truthfully question how much damage, like, so when we think of damage, you know, we also think of like, how much is this going to cost to repair? Like, how costly is this going to be? I mean, you know, the United States is definitely taking a hit from this storm, and the amount of damage and it just the devastation. You know, we've got linemen, you know, as I've stated, doing their best to restore power. It's just such a dangerous situation. And until this water can completely recede back to where it is, we might not see power in certain places for quite a while, given the fact we don't want to electrocute the water. We don't want any, mess ups on certain, things. It's just, there's so many factors at play right now. And like I said, I will probably check back on this topic specifically, probably in a couple of weeks or so, once we know a little bit more, data wise and, damage wise, the true extent as to how heavy hitting this was. I truthfully wonder where, on the, scale that Helene falls on, in the sense of like, this was damaging. I don't think I've seen this much damage from a hurricane in a long time. Like, this truthfully, it's spooky. I've never been in a hurricane before. I've been through a tropical storm back in 2023. There was that tropical storm that hit San Diego area, like Southern California, and into, the Baja area. But that was a little tropical storm. I did heed the warnings, but I also looked at all the radar facts, and at the time, it was just not, the waters were not warm enough to do anything. The storm basically pretty much broke up once it hit land. Now, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of, I believe, flooding in certain areas. There was damage. But as far as I knew, we had power. We had everything that we needed. We were pretty much safe. But it's still very much so. It doesn't matter if it's a tropical storm. It doesn't matter if we're dealing with severe thunderstorm. Take each warning and take it to heart. You need to be in the know at all times. Because you never know. Like, they did not expect this storm to intensify as much as it did. And it did. Like they said, they predicted it was going to be Category 3. Once it hit landfall, it was going to die out. This thing intensified so much before it made landfall. That is scary. Now, of course, the biggest difference between California, Southern California, and Florida is Southern California has basically underwater cliffs. That's why you don't hear any tsunami cases or anything like that about California, is because California has basically underwater cliffs and drop-offs. And that helps kind of break up a lot of that flood water and a lot of those big waves. It's why we never get tsunamis here. I mean, there's too many factors at play that play against something very catastrophic in Southern California. Not to say that it can't happen, but it would take a lot to get something like what Florida just experienced here in California. But I mean, like I said, I have seen, I have watched, I have, I've just done my research. And again, also shout out to, National Hurricane Center and hurricane hunters, especially the hurricane hunters. They do this dangerous job so we can be in the know at all times. Hurricane hunters fly either above or into some of these storms, and that is just super dangerous. It is not, like a robotic drone type thing. It is real human people doing their best to collect that data and get that data out there and into the hands of these meteorologists, so that way you and I and everyone else can be in the know at all times. That way we know what to expect and we know what to prepare for.
Yeah, you do see the heart of the area as people are helping people. Dave, I appreciate you giving that walkthrough with us. Thank you so much. Let's now take you to other parts. Our video feed showing you it's not just Georgia. So take a look at this. This
Sarasota.
is Sarasota. This is from above. You can see just the street and all of the flooding in that area. Obviously, people cleared out, and the flooding just happening moments ago, 7:41 a.m. This is our video feeds showing you that from the Sarasota Police Department camera. And about 90 miles away from there, this aerial shot, it gives you a view of the streets in Treasure Island. What a mucky mess that is. The cleanup will continue for some time. And then take a look at the streets that are flooded in Citrus County. We actually caught a person that was going through the waters with a kayak. Sometimes we see that during these situations. Our video feeds also caught damage in South Carolina. We take you there. 2 people are fortunately safe now, but look at this. Their home was right in the
Look at the walls and the roofs and the trees. That's the other biggest thing is trees falling. Even in my own personal life, my dad, so where my dad lives, he's in the Midwest, in Iowa, and he has a dead pine tree in his backyard, and that thing is dead. It just concerns me because that tree, at any given moment with the highest gust of wind, because we get really, really bad storms, that tree could topple over and just done. That's it. Gone. Bye-bye. The house and the roof will get smashed, and that would be devastating. I feel so terrible for these people, but that's the other thing you have to really, really, really watch for. Is it's not, like I said, just the floodwaters. It's not just, the rising level of water. It's the wind. It'll knock these trees over. It'll uproot a lot of these trees. And if your house is in the way, it's gonna topple and it's gonna crush it, and that is devastating. But especially if you're inside and you have no idea it's coming, I mean, that's scary.
Middle of this tree that fell right on top of the home, and the people inside are okay. We're happy to report that. And as expected, Helene's damage is leaving a lot of people without power right now, big time. So this map shows you millions across the Southeast that are just in the dark, and over 1 million customers are also hoping to get their lights back on soon in Florida. So you can see here, a majority of those are in the Big Bend area where Helene made landfall. Okay, here is a view of where the outages are just north of that in Georgia. Also, 1 million customers without power.
Oh my goodness. That is terrifying. That is horrifying. Just, jeez Louise, it's scary. It is terrifying. I want to listen to this real quick.
Experience like moving through the evening and the overnight hours? What was the response from the county like? Because I know across this area, the need for help was so widespread. The number of high water rescues that were necessary. How did you fare in Sarasota County?
Each storm is different, and here in Sarasota County, this storm definitely impacted our coastal communities. We are
it hit Sarasota hard.
Search and rescues on our barrier islands. We're trying to control the traffic to those areas to allow our team members to perform those rescue missions. We definitely, National Weather Service stated 4 to 7 foot for storm surge, and we were definitely on the top end of that scale. And we have some devastation in quite a few areas in the coastal community.
Yeah. Friends of mine have a home down Minnesota Key, northern part of it, near Inglewood, and they unfortunately had a few feet of water into their home, and I know that experience was very widespread across the county. And this comes after you dealt with freshwater flooding from Debbie. That was just not even a month and a half ago. This has been much more widespread, though. What's it like?
Look at the road. Look at that. The water took that road and corroded it and took half of it. This is why it is so important. You can see, look at how that water is still right there at a high point right there. That is scary.
To a disaster on a county level when so many of your residents have been impacted.
You know, in Sarasota County, we have a great collaboration at the local level with our municipalities, our local law enforcement. We also are partnering with our neighbor counties. I'll let you know that last night we put a call out from some additional high rescue vehicles, and one of our counties nearby, DeSoto County, responded, and they had a vehicle that was the only vehicle that could get out there and save a family. We have additional resources coming in from the state, and we also now have the federal government, so the FEMA representatives are in here. So this is a full effort on all capacity to support our community, but it's not going to be something that's going to get done in a single day. It's going to take a really long time. We're still, in fact, recovering from Hurricane Ian, and that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's the other thing is when Ian blew through, Florida got hit really hard, and to think that that was 2 years ago, and they're still attempting to recover from that. Additionally, on top of Hurricane Helene, it's just devastating, and it really hurts to hear that these people they're doing their best. They're doing what they can on every level that they can. You know, the government the state of Florida is doing what they can. Everybody on an entire level, every county, they're doing all that they can to help. And it is going to take them a long time to recover from this. I don't know when, don't know where, but it's going to take them a while to recover, because this was just such a hard-hitting system. And again, and not just in Florida, but in Georgia and in South Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, like all along that East Coast, close to Florida, this thing hit hard.
Jamie, that's what I wanted to ask you. What are you expecting for a timeline on something like this? I mean, I'm on Paradise Island, almost over to Treasure Island. It's still technically closed. Folks are walking in to get a glimpse at their homes, their property, to see what kind of shape it's in. Is that the case for some of your areas down in Sarasota County?
It is. It's simply too early for us to determine to the extent of the damage. We need the water to recede in the certain areas. We need to be able to complete our certain search and rescues, and we are still out there determining the damage assessment, and it is going to take a really long time to recover. We have some roadways in our coastal community that become completely washed out.
Jamie, I know this is ongoing right now, the search and rescue efforts, so we wish you the absolute best to you and your teams moving through this, and we hope for a quick recovery. That's Sarasota County's Communications Director, Jamie Carson. Thanks for talking with us on Fox Weather.
Thank you for having me.
Jane?
Yeah, I want to zero back in, Ian, on the flood risk that we have right now that's ongoing across the Carolina mountains. This is a look at Roxborough, North Carolina. And
this is in North Carolina.
The mountains, that's when terrain becomes a big problem. And with Helene racing up with the punch and power that it did, not only did we see a ton of rain get wrung out through the mountains, through North Georgia, but we also saw damaging winds, downed trees, power lines, all of this unfolding in just such a short period of time. We're looking here at the last 24 hours, estimated rain.
And here's the other thing, too. This thing was big. The reason it impacted so many states, this thing was massive. I want to see if I can pull up a photo for you guys. The National Weather, the International Space Station, they took a photo of this thing. I want to see. So I know they took a photo of it. Yeah, here. I need you guys to truthfully grasp how big this frickin' photo was. Or how big this storm was, excuse me. This was the photo the International Space Station took from space of this hurricane. This is huge. That is why it impacted like 4 or 5 different states. This was huge. between the outer bands and the inner bands, like this thing was massive and it was big and it hit quick and hard. Category 4 by landfall, and then moved its way up and was still technically a Category 2 by the time it reached more inland. And that's a big, big deal for a lot of these places in a lot of these states that got impacted. That's why there's so much flooding. That's why there's so much damage. This thing was big. And I mean big. I mean, I couldn't remember the exact numbers as to how wide and how tall in length and in width it was, but it was huge. And that is just scary to think about as to how big this thing got and as to how and just how quickly it moved. Like that's crazy. Like can I find, yeah, here you go. Even when it was in the water, this was how it looked. I mean, you could see these clouds up here that were bringing that rain and that the rain, the wind, like it just moved in very quickly, even without being on land. This is when one of the bands hit Cancun, because Cancun even got hit by this. This was once it was more inland, once it was pretty close to making landfall. This was about the time it was categorized as Category 4. And again, you can see the clouds over, Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama. Like, the reason that these places got impacted so heavily is because not of only the hurricane itself, but the cloud cover, the amount of rain, the amount of wind. This thing hadn't even touched land and it was already causing flooding, destruction. The storm surge was just so high and so impactful. I mean, it hit and it hit hard. It hit quick and it hit hard. And again, it's gonna take a long time for recovery, and it's just, I mean, like they said, they were still trying to recover from Hurricane Ian, and that was 2 years ago. So I mean, this is gonna take a long time before a lot of people can return home and, try and get back to their normal lives. I mean, businesses and, a lot of businesses and a lot of places might be forced to shut down because they probably can't cover the damage. And a lot of places are going to close, and it's a lot. It is a lot.
Plus the flood reports, and you have this corridor here where you've not only picked up 5 to 8 inches of rain, but in localized areas, especially up into the mountains, we're talking easily over a foot in some of these spots. And this is after the fact that we had a predecessor rain event the day before that dropped nearly 5 to 12 inches of rain.
That's the other thing too.
Exact area.
The day before it was raining. This is why, records of rainfall have been broken. I mean, we had pre-storms, pre-rain, tornadoes and thunderstorms. This thing hadn't even hit land yet. It was still in the water. And it was already doing the damage that it could. This is why people wanted this thing to hit land as soon as possible, because it kept growing and growing and growing in intensity. And that also means as in category as well.
Ahead of Helene. River flooding right now is a very dangerous situation. We have several river gauges through the Carolina mountains right now that are in major flood stage. In Atlanta, in the metro, the Peachtree Creek is in major flood stage, beginning to drop back down. But this is the important piece to this. The rain might be coming to an end, but all of that rain that fell in the higher elevations has to go downstream. And so you can see that this water is expected to rise again back through major flood stage there in Atlanta. The Shenandoah River in Asheville, North Carolina, this is a very dangerous situation that's been unfolding. We've had numerous water rescues. There are several people who are trapped because of these floodwaters. And unfortunately, roads have been washed out. There is that concern for landslides. And again, the rain has ended, but that water is still wringing itself out. And we are going to watch as those floodwaters in those rivers continue to rise. Ian, rain still to come, not much for the Carolina mountains there, maybe another 1 to 2 through the weekend. We turn our attention into Middle Tennessee, Kentucky for that upper level low spinning, bringing about 2 to 3 inches of rain.
Yeah, it looks like the bluegrass and over to the Ohio Valley, Derby City and Cincinnati, a bunch of rain right on through the weekend. Jane, we got to talk about what to expect moving forward from here, because as we were just talking about with Jamie down in Sarasota County, this is the beginning of the recovery, and folks are trying to get things cleaned up, and we have to talk about if they can do that safely. Clearly, you can see behind me, it's hot, it's humid, we're in the upper 80s, it's 89, close to 90.
And even now, I mean, we're getting tornado alerts and, reports. Like I said, this hurricane has left us with a lot. Like I predicted yesterday, we're going to see a lot of tornadoes pre-landfall and post-landfall. Just because the amount of rotation that is still in the air at this time, and a lot of the scattered remnants of this hurricane is still going to be around a lot of these areas. We're going to see a lot of potential for these tornadoes and these severe thunderstorms to then take effect and build themselves. Like I said, I have no doubt. Sadly, I have no doubt that we're gonna probably hear around those areas tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, high winds. I mean, until this system completely dissipates and clears itself out, just like I said, because of the remnants of this hurricane, we're gonna see a lot of severe thunderstorms, high rains, high winds, potentials for tornadoes. But that is all the time I have today. Like I said, if you want to watch more of this stuff, it will be all over YouTube, all online. As I stated before, I am not a professional, but like I said, I use what I know to get the information out there. So, I will be back Tuesday. We'll be back to our normal gaming schedule with more Minecraft. I'm excited to get back into my gaming schedule once again. But I really, really, really just wanted to touch base yesterday and today on this hurricane and what it did. And again, this is not the last time you're going to see me do anything like this. Like I said, am very big into weather. I love doing this stuff. And again, if for any reason any of my information has been incorrect or wrong, feel free to correct me. I love constructive criticism. Do not be rude to me. Be nice. But constructive criticism is definitely something I will accept. But like I said, there's going to be still, like I said, the remnants of this. We're going to see a lot of different news reports come out. We're going to see a lot of these rescue efforts come to play. And it's going to take a while before Florida and Georgia and all these places are back to normal. A long while. But that's all I have for you guys as of today. Like I said, if you guys want more information on this, go to the National Weather Service website. All the information I've used today is free. YouTube is also, everybody's live and talking about this right now. So that is all I have for today. I hope you guys have a great weekend. And like I said, thoughts and prayers to the people in the southeast regions. I hope that you know, this, I hope that everything, you know, comes to a close and that everybody can, you know, soon, I mean, of course not soon, but soon, you know, be at rest and go home and rebuild. This was devastating. Like I said, that's all I have for you guys today. I will be back Tuesday for all of the normal gaming stuff. But chances are this is not the last I will be talking about this. Once more information comes out, once more data comes out, I'm going to definitely take a peek at it. Whether it be on stream or off stream, this is not the last. You're probably going to hear about it from me. So I hope everybody has a great day. I hope everybody has a good weekend, and I will see you all Tuesday.